mini workshop. So I have to stress, right? This is a super, like, what would you call it? A sampling workshop, a taster, whatever you call it. Um,
And a
because
moose.
normally, advertisement, or diverse. So normally, the stuff I talk about is usually done over several months. So maybe kind of like 10 or 12 or 20 discrete sessions. But now I'm like pressing it into like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go off camera at 11:30. I'm still gonna be on the call, but I gotta like take a cab somewhere with the last 30 minutes. But I honestly, this is so interesting to me because um, I feel like future, foresight, all this type of stuff necessarily becomes more prescriptive than descriptive, which is like what people want to happen as opposed to like using like future it's a predictive it hasn't happened yet, so you have to like use some sort of prediction and prescription. And so I like having a conversation about like how you can be descriptive about the future, even though like I don't know if that's even possible, but it's something I've been
Yeah.
growing myself because I try to do a lot of foresight, futurism, all that type of stuff, and it feels
I
like
think yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if we're saving it, but I'll just push it back with your first few sentences that it's not descriptive. Um, it's meant to be more like a narrative kind of
yeah,
call to action sort of thing. So I don't think it's more descriptive in a sense. I think to use what you're saying, uh, but yeah, see how this goes. It's also not individual effort. It's a communal, collective effort. So it's what the whole community, developing community, thinks is relevant, uh, and how that goes. So yeah, it's not physics. It's structured imagination.
Mm. Hey, Matt Half. Also, Eddie, do you know if you can adjust the mic? It sounds a little fuzzy. It's not like the most crisp sound in terms of audio.
Right. Uh,
I low-key feel like it sounds like you're not recording from the mic. It sounds like more like a laptop kind of audio, or like a regular mic audio that's not from the headphone, perhaps.
how is this?
What do you say?
Uh, how,
See if
I
you
don't know.
like. You think it's closer? Do you think it would work? Like it would like be more clear? I don't know. Honestly, not
Yeah,
the biggest
I
fan.
agree. It's very echoey, kind of like as if it's very far away from where the actual mic is. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Actually, Sean, you're so clear. Is that like what? I'm not sure what you're using. Are you using a mic? 'Cause that was
I'm using
really
AirPods Pros. I just got them like last week. Yeah,
impressive.
these.
Gotcha. That sounds really clear, actually.
Hi everyone.
I'm actually freakishly surprised by how early everybody is. Like even I'm not. I'm not that early. I feel ashamed now. I feel like I should have been earlier.
now your sound's just not even coming through, Eddie. Oh, okay, yes, probably. Yeah, we're in the. There's a funny thing with time, talking about the future, but here we are before the thing talks. We're in the past. Who knows?
That is true. I think what would be cool also, I think someone in the PGL banner actually talked about like the banner. They made a library banner. I kind of want to discuss that as like a little skill set. I probably should announce it. Let me see if I can we do multiple screen share within Discord, I wonder?
What? Maybe.
Share screen.
How's this?
Yeah, wonderful.
Oh,
Much
good work.
clearer.
Yeah, sounds great.
Thank you for doing that.
How's the mic?
Great.
Better.
Can you hear us?
Great. Okay,
Hello,
yeah.
hello.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hang on.
Hello. What I'm
Can
gonna
you hear
do?
Eddie?
Hang on.
I feel like
Yeah.
we only have now his audio coming in, not out. Or like, can you hear us speaking, Eddie?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
sweet.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
never mind.
yeah.
Sorry about
Just
that.
got
Do we
to-
want manner? Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for
Just
saying
to-
something, Lynn. That way people will be able to understand it much better.
Awesome. I was like, dang. I mean, now you're not using a mic, it sounds clearer, which I think is even funnier.
My mic. This is my mic.
Oh snap! I was thinking like the mic from the. Gotcha. That makes so much
No.
sense. Makes so much sense. Also, I'm gonna end my. Whoa! How do I stop my? Also, so let me just start the event and see if it alerts people that it's starting. Okay, so now we just chill for like like 5 minutes. It takes more people to come in. Like, I know it's future thinking, but honestly, this is like either like really early of a time or like a really later time for the active members who are here. So I mean, for Eddie's case, it's like what 11 for you?
Yeah.
11 p.m. Yeah.
Which is much better than what it was the previous one I went to. It was like 1 a.m. UTC
Honestly,
plus
our
8.
call
So.
was like at 2 p.m. and then because we had like about like 2 Singaporeans who are like, yo, this is real late for us. And they were still showing up on the call. So that was QZ and Sid. And we're like, okay, let us just wake up earlier. And so now
Thanks so much.
yeah,
Good to
no.
see
We did
Sid.
like a group vote. We're like, hey, what time works for everybody? And there was like a big mess in terms of like, okay, how do we accommodate everyone? Which obviously, with coordination, is so hard to do. So we decided on this time. But ideally, like, what would be cool is to have like once a month, like a different time slot of some, so that it just kind of accommodate like other people. But that's like if we scale the library with more members and stuff. So Eddie, I'm excited for you to reel more people in, like Aaron or whatnot.
Yeah. Ooh.
Awesome. We're having more people.
Okay.
We would want to wait for like a little bit more. Let me see. Glad to see Sarah here. Hey Sarah. Been a while.
What
like,
up, Sarah?
How are you feeling? Because the last time you seen you kind of under the weather. Oh no.
Yeah, I'm better. I was testing positive for like 11 days with COVID. It really sucked. And now I have this disgusting cold sore, which I'm hoping you can't see on Zoom. But I'm a lot better. Thanks for asking. I know it's kind of gross, but
if you had never said about the cold sore, we would have never known. Like, that is.
I mean, I'm just going to confirm, have a gross cold sore. It's living on my face now. We're married now. We're in a committed relationship.
Well, thank you for like sharing your marriage. I think it's a great place to share that. Like, I think I have like a baggy, like sleepy eye. I just woke up, so I mean, if we're like open to confessing all these things, might as well know that I am not up. Let me see. Cool. So let me see. We have a few more minutes. But on the other hand, I think 08 is that? Oh, wait, they're on mute audio, so they might not be able to hear us at all. And then, hey Sean or Jean, how do I pronounce your name?
Sean, me? Yeah.
Oh, well, Jean on Heo. I know how to pronounce your name, Sean. So.
Jan?
Oh.
Jan Ann. Jan Yan
Jan.
Ho.
Jean,
Hi,
John.
it's Jeannie.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Jeannie. Oh, it's Jeannie.
Oh, okay.
None of us got that.
Great.
Look at that.
No, I did not expect that at all. Awesome, Kate. Kate is actually a super new member. So, actually, Kate, hi, welcome. Would love for you to introduce yourself before we like start in the call. You came at the perfect time for me to like investigate you, and yeah. Kate, are you here?
Hey there, can y'all hear me now?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, sorry, I'm just joining. I had to get access to the common room. But hi y'all. Yeah, my name is Kate. And I'm excited. Thank you, Lynn, to inviting me for this. I'm excited to see what y'all are talking about today and get more involved with the Public Goods Library. I am a law student in Austin, and I'm focused on public interest law, and I've been involved with LexDAO, and I'm really excited for the project that Gitcoin and LexDAO have about providing legal aid to impact DAOs. So awesome. Excited to be here. Thank you.
That's awesome. Okay, so before we start in the call, I just want to note that this call will be streamed online, and that we have a conversation thread happening. I will be tagging everybody in there. But pretty much like if you want to share articles, thoughts, or like other people are talking and you want to share thoughts, get feedback or whatnot, you can share it in the thread. And so it's like a lot of that happens in the chat. So yeah, so Eddie, feel free to like kind of introduce yourself and just kind of get started. If everybody take a look at the stream that he's also sharing as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to have a shout out to QZ, but apparently he's at the Statue of Liberty right now. So he brought me into Gitcoin and into this community, and so I'm just very excited to be sharing some of these things. In my day job, I'm a researcher at one of the think tanks in Singapore. But here in my own personal capacity, I'm here to just share a bit about what I've been doing off my day job, which is I do a bit of futures thinking. It's something that that I was somehow introduced to back in the early 2000s, and now it's been many, many good years of fruitful thinking and writing and researching. So I've done training workshops for governments, various parts of the world, shared in various community sessions. So I've kind of a few aims with this. So part of it is introduce foresight as a way of democratizing it because it's still too elitist in my view. The other thing is, I think there's a good opportunity to share foresight at this current juncture, given how things are working and evolving, and see if maybe foresight might be a tool to consider to help bring kind of clarity to the community. So there are these two purposes that I have in mind, and it's something to consider if the community wants to take it up as a process to think through. Okay, so the other thing is, this is really a talk in two parts. In the first talk, I'll just give a very, very brief introduction to the whole thing about foresight and what it's about. And then the second part, which I hope will be the bulk of the session, will be going through a short taster session of what a foresight process looks like. And so for that, if you go over to the chat in the Discord, there's a link to a Google Doc. I trust all of you with that link because we get to do a short workshop where I sprint through the process of a foresight practice, foresight process, and then we get some reactions out of that. Yeah. So the link is in there in the Discord chat. Lynn has very kindly put it there, alerted everyone, so that's great. So, all right, I'll just get started. Okay, so foresight, right? So early on with Ben Percival, we had this little chit chat about whether futures is about prediction or descriptive or prescriptive. So I immediately pushed back and said, well, we're not in the business of prediction. Actually, we're not interested in point forecasts. The good people that I talk to in the foresight community would never say that they're predicting something. That's just not something we dare to say we do. And we try not to do that. In fact, I've tried to say that the practice of foresight is really stretching the imagination in a structured way. And to be a foresight practitioner, all you have to do is to be a good facilitator and have some imagination. And you get to see more of that. So foresight is really about building plausible worlds. Plausible worlds in the sense of, if you ever watch a science fiction movie, so I'm old enough to know about Minority Report. It's a world of where behaviors could be predicted by people. There's some kind of pervasive surveillance. So that's one kind of world. And then there's the Marvel cinematic universe, the Avengers, and all of that. That's another world. And then you have the very gritty, Alfonso Cuarón's Children of Men, right? Post-apocalyptic world, super low fertility rates, and the guy is trying to get to rescue the last pregnant woman left on Earth, and etc. etc. So all of these are actually worlds, right? And they've been built. They've been built for your entertainment. But what Foresight wants to do is we want to build a world of some relevance to you, for you to do something to kind of grasp and take hold of, and amidst all the uncertainty. And it's used for governments, corporations, communities, even virtual ones like ourselves. So as I've said, what I want to share is this process, so that all of us can have a common frame of understanding, so that we think about whether we want to, do an exercise for ourselves. Okay. Despite all this like fun, entertaining stuff, right? The practice of building scenarios has actually, at least in this modern iteration, has a very dark past. It comes from the Cold War, when people were thinking about annihilation, right? Nuclear annihilation. How do we meet with the Soviet Union, right? How do we allocate bombers and missiles and all of that? So if you watch Doctor Strangelove, they were actually based on real life analogs. So they were like people like von Neumann, this computer science genius, and then there's Thomas Schelling, who started thinking about agent-based models and all of that. But it comes from that, thinking about the unthinkable, so to speak, right? So what happens if a place got nuked? How do we respond in kind? Where do we aim? How many targets, etc., etc., etc. So all of that, and then the 1960s came along. A Frenchman by the name of Pierre Vac. He goes to work for Shell, the fossil fuel company, and he starts this whole like storytelling process and hoping to get business leaders in Shell to kind of think about beyond the linear trends. And then from there, a few individuals came from that. Peter Schwartz, he started at Shell, started his own consulting company called Global Business Network, goes on to consult for Department of Defense, various governments, places, and all of that. So part of the reason why you hear the Shell scenario process is because of him. I think he can be rightfully arguably credited with the project of expanding Foresight into corporate practice. And then all of that, you also have this guy called Adam Kahane. He's a Canadian. He gets roped into a scenarios project in South Africa back when Nelson Mandela was still in prison, was being freed, becomes political leader. So Adam Kahane helps to form this elite stakeholder scenario process where he gets people, different factions, opposing factions who might have shot at each other, in fact. He was involved in the Colombia process, in Guatemala, in Thailand, various other things. He forms his own consultancies and all that. So you can see how Foresight has been used for positive purposes with nation building, peace, reconciliation process. You can see it as expanding corporate power, with Peter Schwartz and all that. But anyway, that's also on the table. And then you have places like IFTF. I look to them very much. I like them very much. And then you have people like Jane McGonigal and others. And then more recently, I came across Flash Forward, the podcast by Rose Elabeth. Fantastic resource. I support her on Patreon. She's wonderful. So all of that leads me to think that a lot more places, a lot more communities are getting Foresight. And this is what prompts me to want to share about Foresight here. So as I mentioned before, I have a hunch it might be useful for us to kind of knock our heads together, put together a process, and figure out how we move. But yeah, that's on the table. We see so many things happening, so many uncertainties. Russia, Ukraine being just the latest version of that. So how do we move forward? How do we get to a good transition so that we don't plan too fast ahead and then people and communities can't catch up and all of that. Right. So that's the super quick sharing. Foresight, how it came from, what I think is important, the rationale, the philosophies, I think there's a lot more that I would like to cover, but because I only have an hour, and there's also the workshop, which the mini workshop, which I really want. So I think at this point, I'll just maybe take one or two questions, and then I'll go into the workshop. Yep. So any quick thoughts, reactions? Anyone?
Yeah, I do. Okay, first of all, Kish, do you mind muting real quick? Because I think we hear background. Awesome, thanks so much. But yeah, I mean, like for like the futures thinking, like what? I mean, have you applied it and like see that it was like predicted to what you have predicted? This is just wondering, like it's like have you prepared for something and you're like, that was a good hunch on my end to like prepare for that.
Yeah. So the way people have used foresight is not really for like specifically predicting for something, but it's because of having done the exercise of the entire foresight exercise, which I'll show you later, how it shows up assumptions. And then people started to ask, oh, what if this assumption doesn't work out, right? And because people started thinking about what happens if those core assumptions didn't work out. Then they started preparing for some of these things. And then, as it turns out, the world does have occasions where it upturns your assumptions. And as a result of that preparation, business leaders in whatever space are able to prepare and then think about how they can meet with that opportunity. So Shell, terrible, bad fossil fuel company, has done greenwashing, etc. But apparently they use scenarios to kind of prepare for things like the 1970s oil shock, started thinking about what would happen if the Soviet Union collapsed in the 1990s. So, and as a result of that, they were able to move into opportunities and all the rest of that. So Shell has been an example that people will point to say that they have used foresight kind of well and gotten big and powerful and all of that. So that's something they have done. That's something people point to.
I got a question.
Yeah, go, Ben.
It sounds like foresight is more so the act of contingency planning. Like it's just like planning for, like we all think business as usual will create whatever sort of situation, but foresight or contingency planning is like coming up with the edge cases that might arise and then plans for what happens if that happens. Does that feel right? Or
yeah, so I would say that contingency planning is a way to put it, but it's contingency planning for like the 10 to 20 year time horizon. It's maybe if you're, so for example, if you're doing something really fast paced, right? Maybe it's not 10 to 20 years, maybe it's 1 to 5 years, right? So you also have to consider the metabolism of the company and the space that you're in. So it's, how to say, I know people have kind of say that, oh, they generate possible futures and then they lean on one of them, and then the rest they just, oh, we'll just have some contingency plan. Well, that's one way to do it. Yeah, so it's kind of, but not really a good kind of contingency plan type of thing. Yeah. Okay,
Eddie,
so
can I jump in with just one more quick question?
Yeah, sure.
You just mentioned Jane McGonigal, who I've been following for many years. I just reacquainted myself with her book "Reality is Broken."
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, she's an amazing game designer who's built a lot of alternate reality games. And like, to give an example of one of them, I think it was called like The Future Without Oil, something like that. And she usually brings together many people for a somewhat short-term period. So the game might run for like a month or 3 months, something like that, and then the game wraps up. But during that time, you're connecting with other people. You're maybe ideating on, a world without oil, for example. And Eddie, I'm wondering what your take is on the usefulness of games for bringing in different mindsets, strategies, approaches for ideating on this? And maybe that's a bigger question than we want to save for later, but I'm really curious to get your take on it.
Yeah, the quick 30-second take is games are underrated. We've not used games as much. Also depends on definition of games, because I've seen people do kind of forum theater types, more localized kind of in the moment kind of interactions. But yeah, games as a whole, it's very difficult to plan out. Most people don't have the resources to do these kinds of games, but I would say that games should be a bigger part, but they're just not there yet because people just haven't found the sponsors and the funders to resource a game. Yeah, so the many games are what I would place in a kind of spectrum of immersiveness of experiences. So that's the report, totally static. You read and you respond, you discuss, and then there's like the artifact, right? You kind of put together some recycled materials to put together something, and then you craft a story around it, and then you make people say that, oh, this is an artifact from the future, and people experience with it and get to know the story with it. And then there's like your full-blown kind of interactive experiences. I think you're talking about James McGonigal's Superstruct game, Future Without Oil. I played that one a little bit. I wasn't in the US, so my experiences were limited. But yeah, so you have that whole spectrum of experiences from artifacts and the reports and the live action role-playing games like Superstruct or / World Without Oil kind of thing. Yeah, so yeah, games super important. Yeah. Okay, so I think I'll get to the mini workshop. Lynn has the link in the common room. You should be able to see it. So yeah, so you should be seeing something like this. And
Yeah, I tagged everybody.
yeah, thanks, Lynn.
Right?
Okay,
And
so
yeah, sorry. I just want to say, like, okay, so we are gonna be sharing a link for you guys to go in there and be like join interactively onto the Google Slides. So I'm gonna share that again. That's shared by Eddie, and it's gonna be in the thread.
Yeah. Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, so very exciting, very good questions, very good energy. I'm pumped and ready to go. So this is the basic scenario process. In case it looks familiar, yes, it is. I think in a lot of spaces now, in a lot of the design thinking, innovation kind of toolbox, you see this is really the process flow where we move from divergence. We create a lot of ideas, ideate a lot, and then we start to narrow down the possibilities on the other side. What I added here to this diagram that you see is added two more things called signposting, monitoring, and strategy resourcing. So this is all to say that a scenario process is really the start of a series of activities to consider, to monitor, to come up with strategies for resourcing and all of that. You see a lot of terms down there. I'll go through most of them in this mini workshop. So don't worry too much. Okay, so first step, here we are, the focal question. The focal question is really the kind of broad overarching question that gets to the purpose of the exercise. So the focal question is really something like, I am interested in something in topic X in Y years time. So for instance, how does my country look like in 20 years time? How does my community look like in 15 years time? So on and so forth. So the format here is that we want to get at something that's not so immediate that we kind of have a good idea what it is, but we want to lengthen it out to about 10 to 20 years so that we can really see deep changes. But as I've spoken, right, it also depends on the metabolism of the industry, the place, the context. So if you think a 5 to 10 year horizon might be appropriate, that's fine too. So just very quickly here, what are people thinking about? What would you be thinking about? What would you be interested in to start off with?
Could you give us like an example, like a sample of like how you think we should answer them?
Yeah, so it could be something like how does Gitcoin look like in 5 years' time? Right, and I'm just gonna put it here. I think everybody has edit option, so if you want to include your own
Ooh.
questions as well, that's fine. So how does Gitcoin look like in 5 years' time? Yeah, so I come from Singapore, so I'm interested in Singapore's governance in 15 years' time. Something like that, right? Yeah, I can see people are trying to edit. That's fine. I'll just go with a few more examples from all of you, and then I'll move forward. So there is also an art of this, right? It's like we're not expecting people to boil the ocean, right? So try to have kind of a boundary you have in mind if you're thinking about something. Yeah, so okay. Understand how we handle COVID situations, how we respond to how the world might respond to pandemics in 5 years' time. Yeah, that's totally valid. Yeah, that's a good one. We're talking about pandemic. We're talking about emergency response, and we have 5 years' time. That's all there is. Not all over the map. Yeah, the diplomacy within wars. Yeah, I'm seeing that. Yeah, interested in music industry governance. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So yeah, what do people feel like if I have like quick shout outs? So I can choose one example and try to go with that for this workshop. Yeah, and because this is open and available, you can come back to it. I'll keep it on, and you can come back to any of these things that we want. So so this is really a quick run through. The music industry governance in 5 years' time, that looks like a really interesting example. So I'm just going to take that for the rest of the workshop. But now, because you have the Google Doc link, you can just copy the Google Doc and you can follow along. And if you want to share what you have later on as well, that's fine. But yeah, I'm just gonna go with music industry governance in 5 years' time. All these examples are great, and if there's space or whatever, we can always talk about them in the threads. And there's such an amazing thing with Discord that we can extend this conversation pretty much indefinitely. Yeah, so okay, I'm just gonna stick to music industry governance in 5 years' time, and I'm just gonna move on to the next slide. For those of you who are still working on this slide, that's fine. In fact, you can just copy the whole presentation and do your own exercise and kind of workshop with me, as we go along with this. Okay, so the next part, as you start to see, it's the broadening part. It's where we start brainstorming. It's where we come up with all the various things that we might be interested in about our focal question. So you hear the lingo a lot: trend signals. You might see futures wheel, horizon scanning. You might see horizon scanning a bit. That's the generic term for literally scanning around the horizon. Apparently it's a military intelligence term. And CLA, I'll get to CLA in a bit. It's a bit more complicated, but I'll get to it. So the way we organize the activity horizon scanning is that we look for things in all the domains, right? We look for things in social, technological, economic, environment, and political factors. People can add other things. If I'm going with music industry, I might want to hone in specifically on culture. So I might just do that. But yeah, so this is what I have. This is what I have as a start. But so if I may just focus everyone's attention on music industry governance, if we just focus on that topic, what do you think might be the various things that might impact the music industry governance in the next 5 years? So you can just go wild first and organize, so you can just follow through the boxes and go through. So social is really the things society to do with people, demographics, culture, taste, religion. Technological, the AI stuff, quantum physics, if you want, fusion power, if you like. Economics, I put that inequality. There could be other economic trends, consolidation of industries, whatever. Regulations. Regulations will be in political. So environment will be weather extremes, stuff like that. So
I have a question. Do you want
Yeah.
us to write more ideas and underneath these categories, or should we propose new things that we should consider? Like, how do you want us to use the slide here?
Yeah, so you can help fill in examples in the boxes. So you can either just write out an idea that you think might be relevant, and then I'll try to group it under in the clusters of STEEP. Yeah, so that would be cool. So political might be regulation, so I'm just going to put regulation. Yeah, that's right. So regulation of intellectual property. Yeah, something like that. And I'm gonna make all the font size a bit small here. Something like 10. Yeah. Yeah, so stuff like that. Yeah, so yeah, access to new emerging tech, that's one, that's possible. Virtual reality, yeah. So I'm just clustering it around technology, right? So if you find you're not comfortable with editing, you can just just speak out, and I'll help with that somewhere. Yeah. Sample. Yeah, currencies. Yeah. Yeah, music NFTs with royalties. Yeah, that's right. It could be one. Awareness marketing product that makes adoption easier. Yeah, adoption. Not sure what to do. Influencers. Yeah. Chambers. Yeah. Okay, maybe the multipolar ball isn't so relevant for that. So I'll put the awareness marketing and product under economics, because it sounds like a business model practice. Governance UBI for for musician. That's a real question, right? Like in my country, there was a discussion when all the COVID lockdowns were happening and people were like listening to music, and then there was this question of whether artists are essential workers, right? Yeah, governance tokens. Yeah, that's right. That's cool. Yeah, the Mizo leaders. Yeah. Okay. So this is fantastic, right? So that's all there is, right? We come up with trends. We in the real world we will be talking to experts, try to talk to other musicians, creators, actual people who've done NFTs, people who've done well, people who haven't done well. We will be doing all of that, and then we will be kind of grouping it all together. So like I said before, this thing is actually done over like multiple weeks and months, compressing into a 45-minute thing. So, we're all doing great. So thanks for being such sporting participants. So I really appreciate this. Yeah. Yeah. So at this point, right? So I'm saying something like better distributed wealth. We have to be careful with the way we point out the trends, right? Because we don't want to immediately place our own judgment on something. We want to try to stay objective and try to evaluate something. So I would say wealth distribution itself is something to look at. Whether or not it's better or worse, there's a bit of a judgment going on there. Obviously, I'm a soft-hearted. I like wealth to be a bit more evenly distributed. But that's my sense, my definition of the word better. If you ask someone else, they might say, "Oh, it's okay. Everyone should just take care of themselves, right? And I can make my millions or not, and that's fine." So other people might not want a more even distribution of wealth. So for them, a more seemingly unequal distribution of wealth might be better, right? So we want to avoid kind of getting into these opinion fights at the moment, and then we just say like distribution of wealth might be something. So that's kind of a way to kind of a discipline that you need to hold as a kind of a futurist to kind of not place a moral judgment or something. And it comes in very different forms, right? For some of you, this might be the first time that you're seeing this kind of thing, so you might be like, "Oh, what is this?" Right? But in practice, as we come into contact with more and more diverse people holding more and more diverse worldviews, we need to start to think carefully about the language that we want to articulate so that everyone can be involved in the process. Yeah. All right. Yeah, platter distributed wealth. Yeah. Thanks for taking in the feedback. Yeah. So this is fantastic. This is good for like 5 minutes of activity. This is great. So I'm getting to the next thing where we want to kind of drill deeper into the things that we've done in the previous slide. So we talked about the trends I want to identify. So what I want to describe here is called the causal layer analysis process. We call it CLA. If you're familiar with like the iceberg analogy or 5 whys or this kind of stuff, so this is a way to interrogate the trend that you come up with, and to see what's really at the bottom of something. And that bottom of something might really be the thing that you want to look at. Here, I've included 2 icebergs because I want to give a sense of transition that sometimes you want to be involved in a business of change. You want to move from one world with one set of assumptions to another world with another set of assumptions. But right now, I can tell honestly, I'm not very clear about how the process would work. So I'll just park it for now, optional. So the whole process is you examine the driver, you try to think about what lies beneath that driver, what's driving it, so to speak. And you kind of ask the question of what's the worldview of that. So the worldview is usually an ism or philosophy. And then follow beneath that, we want to get at the deep question of some of these things. As you can tell, there is some movement, it is very common to have kind of a conflation between worldviews and myth, and that's fine. It's very tiring. It is asking people to challenge their deepest set of assumptions, some of which can be very embarrassing or kind of holds very deep value for themselves. So they can be very difficult to get out of people. But so we want to get at that because we want to get at the important driver that's beneath kind of the surface trends that we talked about. There's a whole like book about this. So in this taster, what I can tell you is, if you need to simplify this, you can just use 5 whys. That also is a very similar process. but beneath, I just want to point out that beneath that there is really a kind of some ideological academic underpinning to this. This is a worked example. So I'm imagining that there might be resistance to social diversity. So I'm interested in why there might be resistance to social diversity. So I put there right there, right at the second layer. Oh, it could be just people really have an implicit basis that their race, ethnicity, constructed or not, but perceived as real, they believe that who they are is superior to all other people. People don't say that up front. They might hide it very well, in fact. But beneath that, subtly through presumptions. So I can tell you very honestly. So I'm Asian. I don't look like I'm English speaking. But when I go to the UK, there might be folks who maybe have not seen as many Asians with good English. They will say, "Oh, you speak pretty good English," right? So obviously, I don't want to offend them, so I say thank you very much. Here in Singapore, we teach English as our first language, etc., etc. End of that. But of course, we know that there can be more kind of more damaging kind of aspects to it as well. So just putting out front that it can be quite difficult. So go down one layer. It just says my race is pure and strong, right? That could be the basis of it. So people around the world, no matter their skin tone, no matter the country, the civilization they come from, etc., they might just subscribe to it implicitly. And then beneath that, they might even say that, oh, I believe my people are strong, and strong people are there to subjugate the weak. So you could, I mean, again, right, it's a deep story. It's not what comes out in the headlines. It's beneath there, right, in the abyss, not the abyss, in the very deep structures that people might hold in their minds and in the stories that they tell each other. This is the illustration, and I want to point to the alternative, which is the other pyramid. So here I have all the wonderful stuff. So when I want to effect change, I want to make sure that I think about all of these layers at the same time, right? I want to think about how is it that I can promote messages of one humanity, how I can say instead together we are powerful. I can say that diversity brings together different gifts. So if I'm interested in enacting change, right, not just adapting to it, which is what a lot of all these things get done with, then I want to get into the space where I'm thinking about alternative messages to kind of hack into existing narratives. So this is why I'm bringing this up. This is very intense philosophical stuff. I think I've seen very intense practices coming out from this exercise often. So I might just skip this. But if you've done this at your own time, for whatever thing you're interested in, feel free to share. Very happy to take a look at it and kind of explore with you as well. So yeah, so all these, again, these Google Slides, you can copy them, keep it for yourself, and all of that. So yeah. I wanted to get into an example, but okay, let's just do a quick example here. So of all the trends I'm picking up here, I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to pick this one, governance UBI for musicians. So I'm going to place it here. So so I'm just going to try to do this thing on the spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you give some context on what I mean by UBI in terms of governance?
So I didn't write that. Maybe the person who wrote that could come into the voice chat and just say quickly their thinking behind that.
Yep, I can share. This is
Yeah.
Anuj. So UBI stands for the Universal Basic Income, and the idea is in future, certain sections of people, artists, musicians, may have a universal basic income given to them for people who do not hold some kind of job which generates regular income that allows them to then focus on the work that they're doing. the baseline behind that is, if people are doing valuable work, it doesn't need to generate revenue from a specific company, and government or some bodies can support them with a basic income so they can continue to add value to the society.
Yeah, thanks for that. You've actually, Anush, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you basically articulated one part of it, which is that art should be really supported, right? Should be supported, regardless of etc., right? So you're saying that art is a fundamental good, and because I'm just going out here. This is example of how it looks like in real life. We'll all be having discussions in small groups, and we'll be like arguing with each other whether this is valid or not. Okay, so the worldview for this might be that beauty is an intrinsic good, right? Anush, would you agree with that?
Yep, definitely.
Yep, yep. And one of the deep story is I can't come up with anything else actually. Maybe it's just something like beauty is a human right or something. So I'm not doing it in the best example that I can, but I hope that this at least gives you the feel of the process of what this is about. So something like this is so I hope that this is a template for what you can do for things you're interested in as well, right? So try to drill down deeper and deeper into something that is powerful for you, right? This is CLA. Actually, there's a whole philosophy behind it. Yeah, I can't go into that. I can put that in the chat after this. But yeah, this people have gone into this and felt that something changed in their minds about something. So it doesn't have to be that transformative for you, but I think for one or two things in your life, you might just want to go through that exercise as well and try to see whether it works for you or not, right? Okay, so we come up with drivers, we've drilled down into them, because we want to get at important things that might shape the thing that's relevant for your topic, right? This is all, like I said, structured imagination, right? What we've done is doing this structured thought in a very deliberate way, guided by a process. Hopefully by now, you found useful things, you found things, you've observed things that might be surprising to you, or already it's generated a lot of insights. So this is the whole point of the process, to keep generating points for further considerations and all that. Okay, so now we've generated a ton of all of these things, and now we're starting to move into the convergence phase. In this convergence phase, what we're doing is we are filtering for those important insights, and we'll be using that to craft the scenarios, which I'll get to at the end. Hopefully, I'll get to some of it. So there are a few ways for us to do that. There's a very intuitive thing called the impact uncertainty matrix. It's really two axes, impact on the vertical axis and uncertainty on the horizontal. Actually, it could just very well work both ways, but just for convention purposes, I've done it this way. And so what we want to get at is we want to get at the highly impactful and highly uncertain things that we'll be interested in of all the various drivers that we've had. So so I've listed out some examples here. So an aging population is a high impact but low uncertainty kind of thing. Why do I say that? Because demographers have done this for the longest time. Most of the people alive in 20 years' time are already alive today. So you can plan for it. You can build more hospitals, get more healthcare workers, etc., etc. So you can plan for it. It's there. It's fixed. Extreme weather events are a bit harder. With the IPCC reports, we know that extreme weather events are going to happen, but exactly what and where and how, that's still difficult. Maybe for us in Singapore, it's a bit easier. It's only either going to be more rain or it's just going to be longer heat spells, right? So there's two varieties, and we've got to plan for it somehow. Yeah, and then shifts in society. thanks Lynn for that. So yeah, um, so it's a way for us to think about all the different drivers we've discussed and try to just put them on the chart. So
I have a
yeah,
question. Are we talking
yeah.
about UBI for musicians, or are we talking about governance in music, like music governance for this page specifically?
It should be governance. You're right, exactly
Okay.
right. Thanks for
Okay.
pulling us back. Yeah. So governance, music industry, 5 years time. Yeah. So I'm just going to remove all of this. Yeah. Yeah, and we can try to just fill in and think about where you want to put all those things, right? So you can copy and paste, fill that in. So what's highly uncertain?
Would something like adoption rate, would that go under here as an impact, or would it would just not be part of the impact?
So adoption rate will be like the surface indicator, but what we'll be
Hmm.
interested in is what will lead to that kind of indicator. So it could be like availability of user interfaces, for example, change in
Mm.
user interface, right? So that's
Got
one
it.
possibility, and and there'll be others, right?
Awesome. That's very helpful.
Yeah, for instance, like you know, if Elon Musk's Neuralink, you know, becomes successful, then we can just change music, at you know, with our thoughts and what will happen to that, stuff like that. What if you have quantum cryptography and nobody can steal music anymore? Yeah, stuff like that, stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, so even like the social attitude of whether music is a public good, how that changes. Yeah. Yeah, big tech company, and antitrust regulations. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's have a few more and then we can move on. Yeah, because I've kind of like really short-circuited the process. So, um, what would actually have happened is we'll use some of the things we generated in the past, and then we'll continue to roll it into here. But yeah, it's also possible that at every juncture we create new stuff that we hadn't thought about before. But yeah, so we kind of rank. So we kind of have to rank things a bit. So let's see, music as driver and creativity. So maybe I'll have that. I'll take note of that. Music as driver. I'll have something like music education in the mix as well. So I'm going to focus on this two: music as driver in creativity and better music education. Okay, so this is just one way of filtering. There's another way, which is the concept map. It's really associational. One version of it is called the futures wheel, where we look into first degree, second degree impacts, and we continually brainstorm. And then as a result of that, we start to see particular drivers that seem to link to other things, right? So if you like to think about, the systemically important things, right? Systemically important banks, right? That are connected to other banks and so on. And we want to just watch out for those things, right? So we have an intuition that other events or drivers that are highly connected to your central thing, that thing itself, highly connected thing will be very important, right? So in this very simple example here, right, driver 1 and driver 2 are kind of important because they seem to spin off to many other, they kind of lead into many other things as well. So that's one way you can use concept maps to kind of also start to think about how generative, how important, how crucial these things are to other aspects. And you can combine this tool with the STEP before. You can start labeling them as well, and then you start to see what kinds of impacts will lead to other kinds of impacts as well, right? So you can have a social thing leading to a technology thing, leading to a governance thing, and so on. So this is how you can use a concept map. I'm very aware that we're just on, less than 3 minutes. I don't have time to work out an example with all of you here. So I'm just going to jump straight into the next thing, which is scenarios. Okay, so the reason I highlighted those two things before is I wanted to make sure that I could at least get to here, and then I could show you a bit of what it might look like. So, so with the scenarios, what I'll do here is I'll take two drivers from the impact and uncertainty thing, highly impactful, highly uncertain, and I'll plug it in here. So I'll just copy these two fellas. This is really like just an example. So if I were to do the shell method, in the shell method, what happens is these two things become the axis. Let's say we kind of just pretend, right, that we voted on these two as the most important thing. And then what we will have here is music is driving creativity, and then what I would do is I would just simply say this is the simplistic version, right? Do not do this in real life, right? So music not a driver in creativity, right? I just simply took the other end of that extreme, right? So the first driver, because it's been described as such, I mean, you know what I said is, you shouldn't judge too early and all of that. I'll just leave that aside for now. But yeah, so if I have one end, music is driving creativity, the other end would just be music is not a driver. And similarly, better music education, I'll just be like non-existent music education, right? So I'll just have these two axes, and then what would happen is with this technique, I will just simply describe the world in which as I go along, music is driver, creativity non-existent. Yeah, so this is a bit contradictory, right? Which is not good. So I have to kind of revamp the whole exercise if I wanted to. So this is another pitfall, right? That if you try to if you look for things that are kind of similar and related, then we get, they become collinear, they become points on the same line, and that's not as helpful anymore. But here I don't know how that could come about. So this is a this is a bad example. So don't do this. Ideally in the real world, these two things will be completely separated, right? Completely kind of totally different from each other. So this is what it looks like, and then I'll start to go into the stories about how such a world will come about and what it will lead to. I will describe each of these worlds, and then that would be the scenario. Another way to construct the scenario follows something called the futures archetypes, and there are four of these: there's transformation, business as usual, discipline, and collapse. I think the names are kind of self-explanatory. So collapse would be like things aren't going well or going low. Discipline is there's a lot of constraint in something that's happening. Business as usual is kind of a linear kind of projection of how things are going. And transformation is just suddenly everything changes, assumptions are upturned, turned on their heads. So this is a quick way to kind of, if you don't have the confidence to do, if you find that the shell, that 2x2 technique, that if you find this technique to be a little bit too structured, then you can just go with this. And then at the end, we get to the signposting, monitoring, where we start to list out the things that we need to watch out for to kind of identify how the world is progressing, if it's progressing towards which scenario. Which is what we do here. Item 1 to watch out for, item 2 to watch out for. And then the last thing is really the strategy. Coming up with the broader strategy about what to do next, resourcing, putting people, putting talent in the right places and all of that. Yeah, so, and you can do it in terms of time, right? What do we do today, a month from now, a year from now, and so forth. And yeah, and that's all
Yeah.
I have to say.
Thanks so much, Eddie. I'm so surprised that we're able to hit like on time. So that's actually amazing because it looks like you have so many slides left. So thanks so much. Really appreciate the session. If anyone have any more thoughts or comments, feel free to add in the thread, and I'm sure like we'll just all take a look at it and add any comments. And yeah, if you guys, I guess it's the end of the session. I'll just stay here for the next like 5-10 minutes to chill. It's like a community hangout. But other than that, you guys are free to go. I'll see you guys again next week. And yeah.
Thank you,
Oh,
Eddie, so much. Thank you. Bye.
Great, it's
bye,
great.
guys.
Yeah, we can connect further in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. Really appreciate Ben's
Yeah.
like participation because he's like on an Uber and everything. He's like, oh, I want to put this on the slide, so I put that
Yeah,
on the
he's
slide.
crazy. He's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, thanks
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Yeah.
Girls, see you later.
Thank you. Actually,